And yet again, we gather together to review and reflect and discuss this incredible band, the Fish from Vermont. RJ, Megan, happy Sunday morning. Happy post MSG glow. How are you doing here today? Megan, I'm starting with you because you are coming off of 4 Fish shows and you have really pushed through. Not only have you done the shows, but you've done the social events and you've also done all the professional coverage. You were here every single day, amazing full attendance. How are you doing right now?
I'm blissed out. I would go again tonight. I could do a 5-night run, it turns out. It turns out
we're going to talk about that.
I am actually really, really good at partying and going to Fish shows.
That's so good. I'm proud of you.
I'm just so good at it.
Really amazing.
So, yeah, it was amazing. I'm just still floating. I think these shows totally met all my highest hopes, and I had really high expectations for these shows. And I think it was an incredible weekend, and I got to meet lots of new people. I had lots of old friends in town that met new friends, and it was kind of one of those weekends where all the things were working out right. Like people were just ending up where you wanted them to be, and we could dance together. And it was awesome. I got a text this morning from my friend Shayna, who went with me to the shows, and she just said, I just put more on and danced as hard as I did last night. I need to do something with this energy. I feel like I could invent something or solve world hunger.
Wow.
So there you go. Fish is helping people solve world hunger.
We need to create like a creativity commune that exists just offset of Fish shows where ideas are created based off of the energy of a Fish show.
I love this. It's like a cult or something, or are you thinking last?
I mean, creepy? I think it already is, but this would just be an addition to it. There would not be there'd be drinks offered, but you wouldn't have to drink the drinks.
That's fair.
RJ, you did 2 nights. You went hard. You did the fan art event, and then you came home and you tended to your family like a good father does. And then you continued to consume Fish shows from afar. How were you doing?
Thanks for asking. I'm good. I went to the first 2 nights, and one of the, this like running a startup related to music is a kind of a double-edged sword, as they say, because Wednesday we had a bunch of meetings and then we went to the show. Thursday I was in an all-day recording session in the studio with a bunch of Broadway actors for this new fiction podcast pilot we're making. It was so impressive and incredible, the talent of these people. And then I went to this, our happy hour, then went to the show. And then Tom and I sold posters for 6 or 7 hours the next day. Then I got on a train home. But, it was all worth it. And this morning I took my kids to the playground for 2 hours. I did a 60-minute Peloton ride because I have to talk about Peloton now. And I just mowed the lawn. So like I can't lose today.
You can't lose. It's all W's for you.
It's all wins. It's crazy shows. Can't believe
crazy shows. And last night, man, I was talking to our guest. We have 2 guests that are joining us today, but our guest Josh Sclaren and I were talking prior to going live here about how, like, I've never been to one of the New Year's Day shows, and obviously this was going to be the New Year's Day show. There's always a vibe though from afar, and I get this from people that I talk to who have been to the New Year's Day show, that it tends to be a more mellow affair. It's the night after New Year's Eve. Everyone's kind of just like existing at the show. The band tends to play a little bit more mellow. Last night did not feel like that at all. Last night felt like a band and a fan base that was like, just give us one more night. Like, we can do another night after this. It was so high energy. It was so exciting. It was a crazy show. I cannot wait to dive into it.
That was definitely the vibe, like before the show too. Like I was out at a bar and it was just like, it was Saturday night. You kind of forgot that too. I was like, oh, it's Saturday night. And like a lot of people haven't been to all 4 shows. So like, this is still really energizing. And I mean, people were definitely, it didn't seem like a mellow night at all. It was, I agree. The energy was super high still from the band and the crowd.
I felt it from afar. So we're going to get into that. We're going to talk tonight about night 4. We're going to talk today about night 4 of Fish's MSG run. I kind of can't believe that this run is in the books. Like this just felt like it was further and further out in the future throughout the last 6 to 8 months, and it getting rescheduled. It's wild that like Fish has now played Madison Square Garden, and we are 2 of 3 of these mini runs in early 2022 down. So we'll talk tomorrow when we regroup about the run as a whole and kind of where we're at this point in 2022. But we're going to focus on the last night tonight. Before we do that, just 2 quick points of business for you all. We encourage every listener out there to subscribe to Osiris Media on Apple Podcasts. This gives you access to HFPod Premium. We have bonus episodes coming out on a near weekly basis. We have a really cool one coming out next week for you all. Also gives you access to ad-free content and a number of other bonus offerings from Osiris Media. So please go ahead and subscribe to that. Help out independent podcasts as much as possible. We'll be able to continue doing what we do. We also have 2 sponsors that we would like to tell you about. Meg, would you like to tell us about Sunset Lake CBD?
I'd love to. Sunset Lake CBD's line of smokable hemp products are for the old deadhead, like Jonathan Hart, or the young fish fan, like Ryan Storm. Anybody who's searching for a mellow body high. Smokable CBD has all the benefits of high THC cannabis, but without the paranoid and anxious side effects. You've got 9 different strains from this year's harvest, so there's something for everyone. The Hawaiian Haze is awesome for an outdoor show, so you can get ready for the summer tour. Now we're going to think about summer tour, which is so exciting. And Cherry Abacus is best for the end of the night. All the flower is grown, cured, and trimmed by Sunset Lake CBD farmers. And even better, they have this real farm-to-table approach. So you get really great pricing on premium CBD flower because they're shipping it directly from their farm to your door. They have really fast shipping, and their product's amazing. I really relied on CBD this week to get through these runs. I would take a gummy every night when I came home. We smoked some CBD at the end of the night to relax. I would highly recommend this. It's a great kind of post-show vibe. So check them out today. They're at sunsetlakecbd.com and use the coupon code HFPod and you get 20% off all your products. Sunset Lake CBD, farmer owned, Vermont grown.
It's a great thing. Love Sunset Lake.
Amazing. Megan, I thought you were going to say or a young fish fan like me and talk about yourself.
Oh, that's cute.
Because you just did 3-4 nights of fish and you said you could do another one. So that means you're ahead of the game.
Yeah, maybe I am still young. Maybe I'm like aging in reverse because of fish. I don't know.
Benjamin Button shit.
There you go.
It happens.
This was a learning experience for you. You can still do it. Like really still do it.
I know. I feel like really proud of myself. Like I feel like more accomplished than I have in a really long time. I don't know what that says about what I accomplish usually, but I feel like really proud of how I managed this week.
I'm proud of you.
I'm proud of you.
I think I'm going to crash at some point, but I'm still riding high from this. So thanks, guys.
Brian, can I tell our listeners about our other sponsor?
Please.
Because I actually got to hang out with Megan at the bar at Moynihan, which is our new sponsor. I got to meet the team who brought us on. So the Moynihan Train Hall, first of all, is an incredibly beautiful space. It's been planned for a long time, and it's that old post office across from Penn Station, and now it's a beautiful train hall, and they have a bar there that has amazing beers and really nice people and good music, and they had Sierra Nevada foam Pilsner, and I had several of those with the team there, and it's just an amazing spot. I think it might be our new meetup, like pre-MSG, because it's within 5 minutes of walking. It's super big and open. The bar is really great. They're really nice, and they have a lot of beer. And then it's like a food hall, so you can go and get pizza, you can get sushi, you can get whatever you want to eat. Megan, I don't remember exactly what you're eating, but I think it was some sort of like Mediterranean feast. Is that right?
It was like a little Mediterranean salad platter. You could get like bowls, and it was $10, and it was delicious. That's great. It's hard to eat dinner for $10 in New York City.
Yeah, exactly. So you can get off at the Amtrak, Long Island Railroad, Subway, grab a drink anytime. I actually had a friend who didn't go to the 3rd and 4th shows, but went back to that bar the next day anyway. So we should keep going, even though the MSG run is over. And if you're watching, friend, you know who you are. So you can check them out at moynihanbar.com or go to the bar at Moynihan on social media for more details. But they're great, and we appreciate them supporting us.
Amazing spot, and that pre-show hang area, like it's such a critical aspect of the MSG run, and glad to see a new venture there. Should we jump into night 4 and break this down and decide if everyone had a good time and if our ears were telling us good things or not? Let's figure it out. Let's dive deep. We're gonna bring our guest on. This is Josh Sclaren, who's on Twitter at J_SKLARS. I think I got that right. And we have another guest that's going to join us here in a couple minutes, but let's bring Josh on. Josh, how you doing, man?
Hey, Josh.
Hey, Josh, you are currently muted. If you want to go ahead and click that unmute there.
You know, after like 2.5 years of COVID and the amount of Zoom meetings, you'd think I would know to unmute when I'm starting to talk. But
it's the eternal learning experience of talking virtually. I've done this. Don't worry. Welcome to the show, man. How are you?
Good. Thanks for having me, guys.
Absolutely. How are you feeling after you did 3 of 4 nights?
Yeah, I did 3 or 4. So 1, 2, and 4. I'm really tired. I don't think I'm not aging backwards as Megan's is. I'm not. You know, I have 3 little kids, and they have activities first thing in the morning. You know, so I am tired. I certainly don't go as hard as I used to when I was younger, but it doesn't matter. You know, I'm just really tired, but thankful that we had these past bunch of days. You know, willing.
Yeah, I was talking to a friend who said he's completely revamped his approach to like partying and drinking during the shows, and even that didn't help. Even that, he woke up the next day and was like, I went through something last night. I don't know what it is. There's something about like the second you get into a Phish show, like the adrenaline is rushing and the band comes out on stage and it's just so intense.
Yeah, that feeling when they hit the stage and the lights go on and everyone around you is smiling and screaming and we're all there for the same purpose. I don't know. There's nothing I've been chasing that, you know, since I'm a teenager. Like that's the chase, is that moment, you know, or like when Chris puts the bright white lights, which by the way, those LEDs are awesome, but the whites are really bright, like really bright. And it was awesome, you know?
Yeah, it's special, and to have it be at MSG is something else. Tell us, before we jump into it, when did you start seeing Phish? Do you recall your first show, and kind of where are you at this point in your overall, you know, Phish scene life?
So I don't know the number of shows I've seen. It's over 100, but beyond that I don't know. I started 12/30/95 at the tender age of 12.
Nice.
I was 12. My brother was 5 years older than me, and my parents were not that smart, I guess. I mean, they let my brother take me to 12/30/95, and as like a New Jersey Jewish kid, like listening to the Grateful Dead and some other stuff like that, and he takes me to this Phish show, and they play Man Who Stepped In Yesterday and Avinu Malkeinu, and they played Susie, and it's when MSG still had seats on the floor, and we were in section 4. It was life-altering, life-changing, no question.
Yeah.
And I know we're supposed to talk about night 4, but to get Avinu Malkeinu again on what would have been the 12:30 show was just super cool to have been there for. And then
I love that.
My next Phish experience was the Clifford Ball, actually. My parents, again, bad decision making, bad parenting, let me go with my brother and like 5 or 6 of his, you know, they're 18 years old, in 2 cars before cell phones to the Clifford Ball. And that was just also life altering and life changing.
So you went to a Phish festival when you were 13? Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying that. Yes.
That is awesome.
I went, not only that, but I went with I had broken my wrist in 3 spots in a hockey tournament 2 weeks prior. So I had a cast on my arm from just below the elbow to like through the hand. And my parents weren't hippies or anything. They were like normal middle class parents. I don't know. They had brain farts or something. And I miss
the 90s. I think parents were much cooler then.
Yeah, so that was awesome.
I feel like your parents, like, they had the foresight to be like, he's probably going to get into some of this at some point, so we might as well just let him do it with his brother.
Yeah. And they always promote, our bond, and I mean, since that, it's really, everything is fish. My kids have seen, at this point, probably 15 fish shows, at least the oldest one. She's 10. We only go to outdoor shows. We say page side, rage side, top of the lawn. What's nice about the fish scene these days is you can make it whatever you want it to be. And so many of us have grown up, right? And we'll look it up on the weekends, but we're professionals during the week. So when we go to a fish show and you're bringing your kids, there's so many of us that it's nice. They really do have a good time. And to see them be really excited about it is amazing. I mean, my middle daughter, I said, hey, when I was going to night 2, what do you think they're going to open with? And she said, what was it, night 1? Night 1. So what are we going to open with? And she actually said Carini, and she was talking about the lumpy head. So she called that, and then she called Fluffhead last night as well.
Wow.
I told her I'd mention.
They got it.
Yes.
They feel it. They feel it. I love that. Well, awesome. I'm really stoked to jump into this show here with you. We're going to bring on our second guest as well here. He's been on the pod before. Huge friend of the pod, Mr. Patrick Hickey. How are you doing, my man?
Hey, everybody. I'm good.
Hey, Patrick.
Hey, Megan. How are you? Good to see you.
Good. We got to meet in person this week. It's awesome.
Which is very nice. Yeah. And to meet you.
I think I've only ever met Patrick in person at fish shows, so it's very fitting.
I think Magnaball was the one and only time. I was thinking about.
Was that the only time that we've hung out in person? That might be. Yeah. We were both weeks away from becoming dads and just letting loose for one last time. That was awesome.
Oh, that's awesome.
Patrick and I got to sleep approximately 20 feet from each other one night this run, so that was nice. Although his room had a door, and I was in the main room, and I don't know if anyone else experienced this who stayed at the Stewart or nearby, but there was literally like the world's biggest crane outside of our window. Around 6, it just started. It sounded like they were just taking it and just banging it into walls. It was like, why here and why now? I actually kind of wonder if anyone complained because it was crazy. So anyway, sorry. Hi, Patrick.
Hey, RJ. Yeah, that was the largest construction crane I've ever seen in my entire life.
Oh my gosh.
Megan, as the resident New Yorker, do people actually do anything when there are noise complaints made in the city? I feel like it's just roll with it.
Probably not. Yeah.
I don't think so. Yeah. 311's kind of busy. Yeah. I think they're like, we'll see, prioritize that. They get to stuff, but it usually takes a while. So I don't know about noise complaints. It seems low on the priority list. But that construction outside MSG is pretty intense. I didn't know that was going on. And it really affects when you get out because it's like, it's a maze and it's kind of terrifying.
Yeah. Our friends Kate and Jeremy got trapped 2 nights somehow in Tower B.
Oh, no.
Trying to get out, right? So they texted us, I think one of the nights you were there, RJ. And then last night I was meeting them, and they're like, somehow we got trapped in Tower B again. I was like, this just happened 2 weeks ago. Like, why? You should have picked something else. But yeah, I think it made it really hard to get in and out in some ways.
Yeah, I think there was something going on with the exits. And yeah, it was I could never tell where I was going to end up. I've been to MSG so many times, and I was still like, where am I about to be spit out? Like, it's very hard to tell. Yeah. That's New York.
Josh,
highs,
was this your highs and lows? You can be the highest, highest and the lowest in New York. It's amazing. Josh, was this your first time back at the Garden since pre-pandemic?
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
How was that for you?
It was like coming home. It was nice. It was nice to be back. It was like just walking in the first night and the anticipation and the anxiety that you get, like that feeling in your stomach that's wonderful and somewhat terrifying at the same time. And you get there and, even if you don't, I'm a bit introverted even at concerts. But it's still so nice to just see like smiling faces and people having fun and people being just genuinely happy for a few hours, and it's nice to just be around that and to come into MSG where we know they're so comfortable. It's their favorite place to play. And, I've seen them more there than anywhere else. And it's like I said, it's where it started for me. So I love going to fish at MSG.
It's a beautiful thing. Well, let's jump into the show. So last night was night 4, and we were talking about this beforehand. Like, from the webcast from afar, this looked like a very high energy show from Note 1, which, this being the New Year's Day show, there's always, the longer 3-night run or 3-set show the night before, the gag. It always seems to, like, not necessarily take it out of people, but it's a lot. And when you come back for a concert after that, I've always gotten the impression that the New Year's Day show is a little bit more of a mellow vibe to it. This felt like night 1 all over again. Let's do 4 more nights of these. And like opening with Fluffhead, a really, really tight, high energy rocking version of Fluffhead, that whole first set being like old school songs. Patrick, what were your thoughts? Was this your 4th night of the run?
Yes, it was.
Wow. What were your thoughts on Fluffhead and the Mike's Groove that opened the show?
It was amazing. I guess so. Josh, you said your daughter called Fluffhead?
She did. And Carini, night 1.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, we were walking up the stairs with Kate and Jeremy as we were about to part ways. And I mentioned Fluffhead, and they're like, oh, but there's no way they're going to open with that. And so when I heard those first notes, I was just like, yes, here we go. So it was fantastic. I had great seats. Over 4 nights had a lot of adventures and some great experiences, but I was just dead on down low in 102. And so I was just locked in the entire time. No letdown to start, right? The Fluffhead was great. I'm sure Trey missed like 6. I think I counted 6.3 notes that he missed in Fluffhead.
Yeah. I got that 0.3 one as well. That was like
it was a little sharp.
I couldn't recover for like 4 minutes, though. I'll tell you what. But after that, I'm joking. Go on.
Yeah, throws you all off, right? Just ruins the whole thing. Yeah, so I almost walked out, but I decided to stick around. And so, it was great opener. I was actually so Simple's one of my favorite songs. But during HFPod Groove, I was sort of like, should I go to the bathroom now? Because like getting in, like you were talking about, Josh, you're nervous, you're ready to go. I'm not dealing with the bathroom. I'll just like go during the set. So anyways, HFPod's finishing up. And I'm like, the next song that starts, I have to go to the bathroom no matter what. And Simple starts. And I was like, well, I made this deal with myself. So I got, even though this is like my favorite song, like we're going here. But I got back in time for Bebop. And then just like the Simple was amazing. The Egg in the Hole was really fun. That's just like all this stuff is so stupid. But, Egg in a Hole, it's a stolen phrase. I'm not sure I should have asked for this. Like, okay, I guess we're just going to have 20,000 people screaming this and, this multi-million-dollar production. So that was great. And then what they play, I know they played Divided Sky, but they might have played something in between those two. And Josh, I see you're a guitar player, so I want to ask you all about your guitar.
I just hang them on walls.
Okay. Well, I play them a little bit.
It's very subtle, Josh. It's very subtle back there.
Well, I honestly, this was coincidental. I wanted to do it in my office because I didn't want to be bothered, but my office is like trashed, and this is the only other place that doesn't look trashed in the house.
It looks lovely.
It works.
Cool.
It works. It's a good spot.
Looks very civilized.
See the rest of it.
So I learned Divided Sky. So over the pandemic, right, I went and learned all these complicated fish songs that I just never taken the time to learn before. So I don't know, coming back and hearing that, and again, I thought it was a fantastic one. If you're looking for a guy to tell you which notes are wrong, I'm not that guy. And so I'm sure the second I say like, oh, it was played so well, someone's gonna say it was terrible. But for me personally, it was wonderful. And then what was the closer then? There was one more after that, right?
First two.
Oh, yeah. So I thought of RJ doing it. I did karate kicks and karate chops for you, RJ. Tried to hold it down for you. But yeah, so I thought the whole first set didn't let up, right?
No.
It didn't let up. Like the only slow song of the first set is I'm Hydrogen, which, is in a classic groove. Like you're not really thinking a breather at this point in time. And I guess you could argue there's like a mellow segment within Simple, but like even that, you're like moving into a jam. It was one song after another. I guess like the silent portion of Divided Sky is the only respite that we're getting, but again, it's Divided Sky. It was
and that was like a huge moment, you know, that was
right. Everyone's screaming.
Trey was like stopping and looking all around, and everybody was just screaming with just joy and pleasure. That was like a real moment. I felt like Trey and the band at large was doing a lot of that, like just taking in the moment, like looking at the crowd and like feeling that connection, and like feeling, it seemed like there was just a lot of like presentness from them, which was awesome.
I just want to say, just because, just for statistical purposes, that was the 10th Fluffhead opener ever for a song that's been around for close to 40 years, which is kind of wild.
Yeah, I think I've got a few too. I have one in Charlotte. Charleston, I think. Yeah.
Maybe Charleston.
2018.
It was the first time that they had done it since last October. They opened the Chula Vista show with Fluffhead. But yeah, 10 times ever. That's wild.
Yeah, what a fun opener. Again, it goes to my point from yesterday that this band really knows how to open shows at MSG. I mean, they've just been coming out swinging. It's just been so exciting. And this Mike song too, super dancey and groovy, like right away into this beautiful Hydrogen. And then the Weekapog was like really sunny and like pretty peaks. But this Simple is so great. I mean, you can hear them taking risks, I think, and like trying different sounds. It was the first time we got to hear some like evil, dark fish. Yep. Shayna's saying we saw it in Charleston. Yep. Thanks, Shayna. Yeah. I feel like I couldn't tell, but it seemed like they were almost surprised to land in Egg in a Hole. It seemed like Trey was singing the like, we've got it simple and kind of like a creepy way over the jam. And then when they started singing it, I saw them like look at each other. I don't know if you could see this on the webcast better, but they looked at each other, and Mike and Trey looked like they were laughing at each other when they were like singing this song. And I think one of our listeners said this, and I think it's perfect. It really is the perfect use for these like weird sci-fi soldier songs to come out of like a monster jam, like a scary, spooky jam, drop into this like weird, creepy, kind of ridiculous song, and then come out of it like just so well. I mean, that like slow progression out of back into Simple was such a good moment. I thought that was incredible.
It reminded me a bit of how they were using Death Don't Hurt Very Long in 2019, where it was not so much of like a song, but it was just like a segment that's tacked on to the end of a jam. And it's like this reference point back to Caswell Voxed, and, you know, just like excites everyone when it happens. And I feel like, to your point, these sci-fi soldier songs, like at their root, they're just like a groove with some ridiculous lyrics to scream over the top of it. And like, what perfect thing to like, it almost works like how Kung or Catapult works, where there's like adaptability to the song itself that can just kind of be thrown into the middle of a jam, which was great.
Which kind of started with Thrilling Chilling, right? Like that was like,
yeah,
all of those songs, like that's like the whole point of those songs, which is kind of amazing.
If we're bringing stats to the table, I thought it was interesting that Simple started after a classic Mike's Groove, and I looked it up last night. There's only been 3 times, including last night, where Simple has immediately followed Mike's Groove. 7/16/99 in Homedale, a famous show because Tom Marshall came out as Bruce Springsteen and sang Born to Run. And then 12/30/13, the New Year's run, they played an extended Mike's Groove and then Simple right after Weekapog. It's wild to hear it there, because that, like 99 Fish would be Mike's Simple, Hydrogen, Weekapog, and here you've got, you know, Simple just tacked on at the end. It fits the larger theme of it, but then goes off into a crazy jam.
I was not expecting that Simple there. I was super surprised, but set rules are over, so I guess they do it as they want now, and it worked. It worked really well.
I was sort of solo last night. I was separated from my friends. I was in 101. They were in another 100 section, and I was texting with them as soon as Fluffhead hit, and we were like, oh, well, okay, it's on. Fluffhead, it's on. And then Mike's in the first set, right after Fluffhead, and you get the classic Hydrogen, and then the Weekapog, and we're all just, well, that's fucking fantastic. And then it stops, and then they play Simple, and we all, I think the text was, fuck, and that was that. And we were like, God, this is just such a classic, yet unexpected, you know, sort of 1.0-ish type set.
I'd love to go back to like all of my text chains during fish runs, because it's either like a fuck or it's a wow, and there's nothing to it. Like, you just know, like a song starts and I'll just get like a wow from a fish friend. And I'm like, yep, we're both watching the same show right now.
I think RJ was texting lots of like, oh gosh.
Yeah.
That's all I can really say sometimes.
There's nothing else to say.
The simple in there though, like that placement of simple, it just, like you said, like, there's no rules, there's no like places where any songs fit anymore. It's just like they just do awesome shit whenever they want. And even if like the song flow or whatever is not your bag or whatever, it's still like pretty amazing that they, I don't know, that they're able to do that. Like that 20 minute simple is just like, that seems hard to do, just like to kind of jump into it. And it's like, all right, now we're doing this. I don't know. I think that it seems hard, not being a musician. It seems like a hard thing to me.
Definitely. I mean, there's no formula they're following ever, which definitely is challenging. I think that would be so easy for them to put songs where they know that they work successfully all the time, but they're always mixing it up. It's just incredible.
Yeah, you think about like a really well produced arena rock show and how much structure there is in place, and like how much they're like how much they go over the top to like give you the sense that there's not structure. But at the end of the day, like, look through Setlist FM for most bands touring, there's like a small variety of setlist changes on a night to night basis. Not only are they playing different songs every night, but they're playing songs that they probably haven't played in 6 to 12 months from time to time. They're throwing out songs that haven't been played in front of people in years. But then also they're allowing themselves this willingness to play a song like Simple and say, this version is going to be different from the last time we played, which was different from the last time we played, which was different from the last time, and we're just going to see where it goes in front of an entire paying audience. It's something that I love reminding myself on like a show by show basis, is that there's a unique quality to what they're doing on stage that is ultimately really challenging.
It boggles my mind, like thinking about how many notes and songs they have to remember to be able to just whip out, whatever song Trey feels like, with no notice, we all like when they practice. You can tell if they're practicing. We understand that. But I mean, sometimes they just bust out like a brother, after 200, shows. And how do they remember how to play that? I mean, Patrick, like learning something on the guitar. Like, I mean, I've been playing most of my life and I'm terrible at it. Part of it is because I can't memorize, all this stuff and keep stuff. So like I've learned the same songs 1,000 times, and how they keep that together and be able to make it different for us every single night is insane. Like when you go, just, I'm sure we all don't just like Fish. We like other types of music. I mean, Fish is number one without question, but like some hard rock stuff, or, bands that they play like an hour set. It doesn't change from tour to tour, and they have 2 or 3 opening acts. And like you go to, it's just like the musicianship and the level of what's necessary to have a good show is just so different. And that's I don't know, that's part of the joy of what we do.
Totally agree. And you get that, like, I think right now where the band is at, there's such an appreciation of this ability to still do this following the pandemic and a tour being canceled as a result of it, this run being postponed by 4 months, so you get a sense whenever they walk on stage, like there's a true gratitude for what they get to do every night. Plus they seem to be at a point where there's just kind of boundless creativity. And so there's just joy when they're on stage, but the challenge of doing that on a night to night basis shouldn't be lost on anyone. I thought First Tube here was a really amazing set one closer. It brought me back to the first run that the band did at MSG in 3.0. The final night, they closed the first set with just like, it's on YouTube. It's a version of First Tube that I don't really know what happens. It doesn't totally sound like a different version of First Tube, but like the entire arena loses its collective mind when Trey's lifting his guitar up. And that's all the way back in 2009. And like this had that same energy coming off of these song selections, coming off of 4 nights, coming off of what I think a lot of people have collectively been saying was a very special New Year's Eve type of show. It felt like a great way to close out the final first set of this overall run. I don't know what it was like for you guys in the venue. Patrick, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah. Yeah, no, it was awesome. I remember seeing that for the first time in Binghamton, 1999 on the Trey solo tour. So it was like the debut, and this was like the tape trading days, right? So in the Rec Music Fish days. So you saw like the set list, you saw these words, but you had no idea what they sounded like, right? And so the first time I heard it was like, boom, boom into it. And my mind was just totally blown, right? I was like, I think I was 18, right? It's the first time hearing First Tube. It's such a powerful song, I guess, right? I think it's one of the songs that like you can play people who don't like Fish, you play First Tube for them.
Yeah, totally.
Like, okay, like I get this. This is like a thing. So yeah, I thought it was a great one. I think you're right. I mean, it did seem a little different to me in terms of like, not perfect A, B, C, like not paint by numbers, I guess. So yeah, it was a great capper to that set. And it's just, it's time to jump up and down and be happy and sort of lose it for a little bit. So yeah, it's great capper. I mean, it's always great when they play First Tube, and yeah, the Jedi is always great. I wanted to touch on something you guys said. I'll stop rambling, but we were talking about the like sort of professionalism of it, right? Like Josh, you were mentioning like, so first, how did all four of those guys do it together, right? And they've developed this relationship of however many years now, where they, my uncle at one point, who's not, into fishing, he's like, what makes this band this thing that people go around? And it's really the chemistry from the four guys. But then there's also that support staff. Like, how many staff members like it took to like flash lights at everybody and have them jump up and down and sing about eggs and holes is just quite a accomplishment, quite a feat. And you have to remember, it started as like those guys in college, right? So the first night we were actually in a suite with our friend Dave, and the drummer from my college band, my very good friend, came to his first show. He didn't Fish at all. Like, we covered Fish songs, so this is the late 90s, early 2000s. But he's just like a guy who liked music, who played in the marching band, and we were just friends. And like, we had this band that, we played concerts for 2 years. But like, they built on that, right? Over the course of 35 to 40. And like we sometimes do reunion concerts and just like play for our friends or whatever. And like, it's still there. Right. And like, there's definitely songs we haven't played in 15 years that you're just like, oh yeah, I sort of like remember this part. I sort of remember that part. But just that they've built on it consistently for the past 35 or 40 years or whatever it is. I think it's just such an impressive feat. And it's such a professional thing for such a stupid thing too, right? It's like different ways to make fart noises. Like, they're like doing all this like ridiculous stuff. But yeah, they built it, and yeah, the fact that we can all do it, the fact that it's as professional as it is, it's just it's an amazing thing.
But I actually think though it's not stupid, because it's bringing like this huge amount of joy, to so many people. That's like so needed in this world right now. And like, I felt that so many times this weekend. Like, there's 25,000 people standing together, like, just like you were saying in the beginning, Josh, like being so happy and like putting good energy out there. And we just don't get to do that. And it's such a tribal and inherently human thing that we need to do. And I think there's so few places for us to like commune together and joy anymore. And it's just, I think you're right. It is stupid what we sing about. And, when you play people's songs like Simple, they're like, what is this? This sounds like a kids show song or something. But it's hard to explain that it actually has a deeper meaning. But really, it's just a launching pad for just like incredible inventive improvisation. But I do feel like, because it's kind of like, I don't know, clothed in this like stupidity or like silliness, it's kind of like stealth, which is cool.
I want to say 1,000% agree, Megan. It is such a beautiful and wonderful thing. Like, I'm going to try not to cry in the podcast, right? But
please do.
I think also, like, I just think like everything's stupid, right? Like, it's like we're just like animals, right? And like, yeah. So like, I could die like in 30 minutes, right? Like, we're here for a very short amount of time, and like all these things have been built is very, very special for sure.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I think about, and I thought a lot about it watching this run from afar, that emotion had a lot to do with this run in a way that I hadn't felt totally with Fish since the early part of last summer's tour. there seemed to be this sense when they came back last summer, like just the simple gratitude of being able to walk out on stage and play in front of people was really impacting the band. And they were speaking to us a lot. And there was a ton of new ideas that were going into these songs. And I felt throughout this run from afar again, and, in talking to people who were there, it sounds like there was, aspects of this to be true, but like, think about how many shows Phish has played since late July 2021. None of those places were Madison Square Garden. And there was this looming aspect of the Garden, I feel like, hanging over the band going into this run that I think in some cases led to, a moment like the Carini that opens up Wednesday's show. I didn't think that there was a better opener that they could have picked. It was not what I picked in any sort of way, but like, when they walked out and they just play those power chords and launch into a huge jam, and there's nothing needs to be said. We're just playing music and we're letting people in the arena get settled, but also collectively lose their minds. And then we're going to take a deep breath at the end of this. Oh, but wait, we're going to go into Possum, and then we're going to take a deep, like we're going to like have this moment finally to like all take a collective deep breath. I feel like everything that we're talking about here, the idea of the silliness, the humor, but also the serious aspect of like people just having simple joy. It's a need. And you saw it throughout this overall weekend that like the band has played incredible music over the last 8 to 10 months, but all of it was leading up to, in some cases, this run for them to finally play Madison Square Garden for the first time in nearly 2.5 years and really walk off the stage feeling like we gave people something that we needed and they needed as well. And I definitely got that vibe from last night's show.
Totally agree.
Yeah, 100%.
Anybody have?
I know that.
You needed it?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
you could see it on so many people. It was just with everything going on and, and I don't know. It was just, it was really good timing. Thank goodness the Knicks are a terrible basketball team, and that it didn't have to get, pushed again. I have no dog in that fight, by the way. I'm not a big basketball fan. I just know that the Knicks are terrible, and that's why we were able to keep these dates. And everyone was just so happy. And like I've seen MSG rock up and down a lot, and I felt like last night being able to see it from 101, which is just dead on, to the stage, seeing everyone up and down and feeling the building move was, I don't know, it was as close to religion as I get. I mean, that's what was really, it was an awesome vibe last night, feeling.
RJ, you never stop moving at a Phish show. It's one of my favorite things there's a lot of favorite things I love about seeing Phish with you, but that is one of the, I'm at the top. What was the joy like for you? You went to the first 2 nights, but what was it like for you being back in that room?
Yeah, it was great. I mean, I was with Patrick and a bunch of friends the first night, and the even in the suites, where we were like lucky enough to be, it was still like moving a lot. The floor was moving, and like, to be in like a fancier suite, but it's still like moving up and down. It's pretty wild. And I was with a couple of friends who aren't big Phish fans, and they just wanted to come just to hang out. So they got to like experience it. And I think one thing of just seeing a show with a good friend who's not a Phish fan is how his main takeaway is like, there's like nothing like this in terms of live music. He's like a huge music fan. Has seen tons of concerts, but like, he's like, this is like so much different than anything else, just in terms of the intensity and the crowd interaction. And I mean, everything. So that was really cool to see and to have people realize like, wow, this is like, first of all, it's like a weird, silly cult, but it's also like the shows are just like insane, so yeah, I thought it was so great to see him back there. Obviously, like the lights and the way that Kuroda has the control over that room also is just like such a different thing, especially compared to Mexico, where I saw them last, which was like, that kind of like stationary setup that they had there in Mexico. But to see like all the just like the ring lighting and all the crowd lighting. It was really, really awesome. But yeah, I mean, I think like Brian and I texted about this at length yesterday, but I am to the point now where like I don't really care what they play or how they play it at all. Like I think in the Reba the first night, I think maybe the composed section was not great, and I didn't notice, like I didn't at all at the time. I mean, I probably did, like in my brain. I'm sure it like triggered something, but I didn't like really notice or pay attention. And I think that's interesting because we just got a comment about that too. I'm curious what you guys think about this. Like is there, I mean, I just don't pay that much attention. And I do think, to be fair to people like me, I think there's a difference between like being overly positive and saying that everything is great and just not really caring. Because I think like, I'm not saying that was the best played Reba of all time. I'm just saying like, I didn't really notice and I don't really care. But if you do pay attention to that, do you guys think this is a thing? Like, do you think that the composed sections of some of these more complicated songs are going downhill over time if you think about it that way?
I think sloppy is kind of an offensive word because this band just is not playing sloppy music right now. I mean, maybe they're missing in notes here or there, but that is because I think like that comment was saying too, they're jamming and they're taking risks in a way that is really, unmatched anywhere. And when you're playing like that, you can't always be completely perfect every other moment. And I just think that to call them sloppy is, I don't know. I find it a little offensive because I just think it's wrong. Like, I think that they can have a few mistakes when they're playing 3 hours, a majority of which is like transcendent improvisation. Like, I think it's okay if you miss a couple notes. Like, I just feel like, that's fine. So I agree with this comment that it feels like they are much more interested in exploration. But then you hear something like A Divided Sky last night, and I also, RJ, I don't know. I think they may have missed a few notes, but honestly, like to hear that piece of music, which is one of the most beautiful pieces of music played at Madison Square Garden by the person who wrote it, like, I'm just happy about it. I'm not worrying about the note that's missed or something, but I know that people are, and I get that.
I notice it, but I'm with you, RJ. I don't care that much anymore. I mean, listen, they're older. They're older. The songs that they used to play super, super, super fast, they've slowed them down a little bit, especially for some of the composed sections. And that's just part of getting older and wiser and more mature. And their jams have gotten, so much more transcendent, like the commenter said. I mean, they're taking the type 2 so much further, and they keep doing it. So I'm not, I don't care, all that much. And it's funny, I was listening to randomly 12/31/95, I think yesterday, and I forget, it was a Reba or I forget what it was, a very composed section, and Trey flubs it, like seriously, yet 12/31/95 is one of the mecca shows that you're like, look, give a non-Fish fan a show to listen to. That's probably like a top 10, maybe. Yeah. But in 95, they were flubbing too, it's not sloppy. They miss notes sometimes, and I'm just so happy they're still playing and that they're happy to be playing. And we get to go to MSG and see them miss some notes, yet jam really, really well. Like, I'll take that over no Fish forever.
I agree 100%, Josh. Can I chime in, or are we? I don't know.
Please do.
Yeah, so I texted RJ the other day. I cannot hear any, unless it's very significant, with 20,000 people around me and a bunch of lights flashing in my face and all this stuff going on. I can't hear like a couple missed notes in Reba or whatever. Like, if it like falls off the rails, I can, right? But like listening back, I can hear it. Like, I'm not a terrible musician. Like, I understand how music works. Okay, but like, there's just so much going on, right? There's so many human beings. So I guess that, and so and also like having lived through 2.0 and all that kind of stuff, like I've heard Fish play those songs way worse, like not even be able to play the songs at all, basically. So I think they've definitely made there's been a focus on improvisation, I guess, since post-pandemic, right? Like, there's been a lot of just in Mexico, and I think it was true at MSG too, just like vibing, right? Just like Mexico, the whole thing, just watching from the couch, I was like, they're just vibing the whole time, right? It was just very patient and very just like get a groove going, build it up, sort of thing. So I don't know, it's tough for me to say that if they're sloppier, but yeah, they definitely, the improvisational parts, as that commenter mentioned, are definitely transcendent and as good as they've ever been, in my unbiased opinion.
Yeah, I think the only thing I would add to that is like, yes, the improvisation seems to be a huge focus, but I think also like the band was pretty vocal about this when they came back in 3.0, that they wanted Phish to be a part of their lives. They didn't want it to be their lives. And as a result, like all 4 members are focused outside of, immediate focus on like a Phish run or a Phish studio album that's being recorded, on their own projects and on their own families. And we know how much music has been written just for Phish in the last 8 years. Basically, like since Wingsuit, they've written upwards of 100 songs. All of those songs at some point need to be tried out and figured out. Does this fit in the rotation? If it does, this is going to probably take the space of another song that's not going to be in the rotation anymore. There's been a huge focus on their jamming, which I think leads to a different thought process in terms of how to approach a show. That wasn't necessarily the case in the early part of 3.0, when the focus was really on how do we nail these songs? How do we play Fluffhead on a consistent basis? Again, You Enjoy Myself, so on and so forth. So in some cases, like I think from my perspective, the band has shifted their focus away, kind of like how they did in 95, 97, away from every single song needs to be perfect, note for note. We have to, because we are presenting this to people for the first time, to kind of what you were saying, Patrick, like the vibe has to matter. I often think back, like in these discussions, to Trey's talks so openly about this in Bittersweet Motel, in 2 different parts, when he's reading the review of the Deer Creek show, the famous Pissing in Their Ears show, where the idea was that any Phish fan goes to a show, the band could literally urinate in your ears and you walk away, you're like, that's the greatest music I've ever heard. Like, don't try to convince me otherwise. And Trey's response is like, if we play a bad show, people are going to get on the internet and talk about how it was a bad show and have a conversation about it. As if to say, like, that's something he loves about the fan base, is that there's this critical reception and there's people who are thinking about these things deeper than just like, it was good, it was bad. But then he also talks in Europe about how people don't come to the show to hear us hit every change. They come for the energy. And the energy last night was rocking. And that leads to, him telling Brad Sands that he's a fucking tool, and it leads to like this amazing Phish GIF that can be used across the internet. But I don't know. I guess I just think like the focus, I agree in a sense with what the commenter said. Like the focus seems to have become on type 2 jamming, but it also seems to be that, like, I think night 1 was a really emotional show. And I think in some cases it would seem to me, and it felt this way from afar, that it was a hard show to play, that there were so many nerves and there was so much anticipation that playing a song like Reba late in the show, of course you're going to miss some notes. Like your head is in your heart, not like critically thinking at that point in time. But I felt like Fluffhead and Divided Sky last night were expertly played. And it felt like this is what happens when a band plays together for 4 nights, is they just naturally become tighter and they play a song. If they had opened last night with Reba rather than Fluffhead, perhaps it's played a little bit more tightly. So I'll stop rambling. That's kind of like where I come down on all this sort of stuff. Please, Patrick.
I'll say one thing, Brian, which I think you're making very good points about sort of the transition over from the start of 3.0. Like they probably played all the changes and everything way better in 2009, 2010, 2011. It was more boring, right? Like it was great at the time that they were back and it was very exciting and I loved it. But it wasn't as interesting, I think, now, right? Like that's like what we actually like, right? We like to go on that journey. I'll stop rambling, but I think that's maybe there's a line there, or maybe there's whatever. But yeah, I'll have a couple notes for the energy.
I think that's, yeah. I also think there's like some kind of reverse recency bias with Phish fans where, like, Brian, you were mentioning this yesterday when we were talking, like 2012 at the time was like this kind of sucks, and now people are like 2012 was awesome. It's like if you point out the mistakes and the things that were done wrong, you're like a better listener or something, which is not. I don't think that's like a universal perspective, but I do think it's like noticing the things that didn't work well is like part of the identity of a lot of Phish fans, which is just I guess the same thing goes for sports, right? You're like, the more you pay attention to the baseball team and the more you like analyze the performance of each player, the more like of a fan you are. It's kind of like how it works, right? And I feel like there's some of that has spilled into the Phish fan base, and I think the Dead fan base was like that too, and a lot of bands that have these intense followings. But it's an interesting thing to be like, well, I heard like 4 missed notes last night because I was like really listening closely, as opposed to like I didn't hear anything because I was like having the time of my life, and there's like there's a lot in between those two things. But anyway, sorry, I think I sidetracked us with that comment. But
I think you're right though, RJ, and I think that like looking back in like 3 or 4 years when you re-listen to this run, people are going to have a lot of positive things to say about it only.
I think we're going to start a new series on HFPod where you bring to the table a show that you had a really good time on, and we're just going to analyze every mistake that was made to determine if you actually had a good time. And I'll start with one of my favorite shows. One of my favorite shows of all time that I attended was Night 2 of Vegas 04, and you can't tell me otherwise. It was a magical evening.
That we have to start with that show. But what about the second? Did they play a second set last night?
I think maybe
they did. And it started with something that definitely didn't suck. And that was an insane No Man in No Man's Land. I just want to start this conversation about this jam with a text that I received from a very close friend of mine, friend of the pod, David Goldstein. About 23 minutes into the jam, he just texted me and said, "I love having ears." And that kind of summarized exactly the feeling of this jam, because I felt that from home. What did you guys think? Josh, let's start with you. What did you think of this jam as it kicked off set 2?
It was pretty wild. And I remember like 20-ish minutes in, I had a Lawn Boy type moment. Like, are we still here? Is this still, when did the set start? Because it got lost, but in like the greatest Phish way,
amnesia.
Yeah. And it was almost 30 minutes, right? It was like 27 or 28 minutes. And that was, and I'm full disclosure, not a huge fan of the song. But I loved that last night. Really good placement, and the jam was extended and awesome.
Josh, I have to ask, because I know we were in a similar perspective. Sounds like we were like the next section. Did you notice it looked like Star Wars flying through space during that jam?
I did, and since Star Wars is my second love behind Phish,
don't tell Jonathan.
I tend to see Star Wars in a lot of CK5's light show, but that in particular, I know exactly what you're talking about. Actually.
Yeah, it was great. It was like playing video games, the best video game I ever could have thought of when I was 5 years old playing the Atari. It was really cool.
So sick.
Patrick, what were your thoughts on this?
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
The light thing was my major thought, I guess. There was some good fart noises 21 minutes in. Sorry, I'm very amused by how many different ways Phish can make fart noises. But there was I was listening on my way in my way in the car today, on my drive back, and there's just like a powerful like bass rumbling for the last like 5 minutes of that jam, which really stuck out to me. So yeah, it was fantastic. The lights were fantastic for that, and it was, again, a great vibe and great, lots of interesting stuff going on.
Meg, this was your last set of nine sets of Phish, 10 sets of Phish. I don't know. I can't do math at this hour of the day, but this was your last set of the weekend, and you had admittedly, there we go, 9. You had admittedly been struggling yesterday afternoon, and then you rallied. How did you feel as they were diving deep into a near 30-minute jam?
Oh, I was totally still energized. I was out of it by the encore, but that's to be expected. But this was like, I thought this was incredible, this jam. He was building peaks like right away, like just a few minutes into the song. And then it went into that kind of like Plinko Calypso style jam. It was like super quiet and delicate. And I think that's probably where I was on the side, so I couldn't see the lights from the front, but maybe that's when it looked like a video game, because it was like Trey sounded like he was barely even touching his strings. It was this very like, I don't know, unique sound. It was really tinny. It was really cool. And then he starts using those effects and getting like really darker sound. And I was watching Fishman a lot during this jam, and he was insane. I think because Seth inspired me yesterday, who was on the pod talking about Fishman so much. So I spent some time trying to really watch him last night. And he is just incredible. I mean, the way he's driving and adding texture to these jams, particularly in that and in Piper later on too, it was just incredible to watch him. And I think that the transfer into Caspian was like a little abrupt, but then it felt actually okay in the moment. Like I feel like everybody was like, oh, Caspian. And then this was a really, really excellent Caspian. I love this song. I know it gets some hate, but this was a great version. This was like a 1.0 version. I love this song. I love Billy Breathes, but this was a great version, and I thought really well placed after this like awesome jam.
Yeah, you need a breath of fresh air after a near 30-minute jam, and Caspian kind of exists for that spot. And I thought this was a really creative version. RJ, did you have any thoughts on this No Men's and this section of the show?
It was the longest version to date. Which
really?
is
Wow.
Yeah, which is pretty wild.
It's the best, right?
What's that?
That means it's the best.
Yes, that's how it goes. That's how it works. I think the set was interesting. I think the first set, like the flow of the first set and like just the way that's sequenced is like pretty much perfect. And the second set sort of like they got a Jaboo in there at the end for Piper. It just seemed like a little bit, it was like, that's interesting, like left turn, you know? So I thought the set like after No Men was sort of like a little more uneven just in terms of the song sequencing, and like a Walls of the Cave closer in the second set is really not something that I expect, but you know, I don't think that's like good or bad. I just thought it was sort of like not what I would expect compared to some of the other shows. I don't know if you guys felt that way being there, if it felt like it was sort of one big flow, you know, if it flowed well for you guys in the arena.
I think the flow through Jaboo was really, really great. I mean, the flow actually didn't bother me the second set, but I thought that No Men through Jaboo was actually like, I thought it was nice song selection. I thought it went well. But the Walls of the Cave surprised me. I did not expect that. Pretty intense version too.
That jam at the end of Walls of the Cave, like that outro part, was just really unbelievable. Like, I remember like taking a note about it and just saying, "Wow, that was." I have to really, really, really have to listen back to that. But I don't like the flow. It's tough to get a set one like that and then follow it with a set two with something that is better in some subjective way. Like if you switch those sets around, first set and then second set's amazing, you know. So I love the second set. You know, I thought the first set was a little better. You know, just song choice for me. But
yeah,
so such a good. I mean, and then the encores. I mean, those were just off the wall.
So fun. I also agree. I think set one was like a set two. So it was like, that's a really good point.
I mean,
it's always interesting when they play. Sorry, I was just going to say really quick.
Bro.
It's always interesting to me when they play like a set one that is so fluid and like from the note one that they're out there, it's so high energy. You get that sensation that like you've been at the show for a long time to the point that like when the show ends or the set ends, you're like, is the show over? Like it's that intense. There's often like a part of me that wonders like structurally, and they've got to have this written into a contract or somewhere, but like, could they just like play through? Like they're playing so well. Every song selection is great. Just don't take a set break at that. Just keep playing at that point. But I feel like we all need a break of like 40 minutes to like catch our breaths. What are your thoughts, RJ?
Well, I was just going to say that like a night like this, it could have been like, you know, several 7 to 8 minute songs in a row, you know, like 10 of them. And that would have been like totally, you know, normal for the last night of a show. So I do think like the 27-minute jam is like, you know, anything that kind of happens beyond that is just sort of like whatever, like do whatever you want, because that was a pretty, like you guys said, it's a pretty exploratory and crazy crazy version. So everything on top of that, I think, is just sort of like, can't complain too much.
Well, and to that point, like I think about this often. We've just normalized them playing 25 to 30-minute long jams on a near nightly basis. And like Patrick mentioned, this tightness in compositions versus improvisation. Like if you listen to every single 3.0 show in early 3.0, there's nothing coming close to this. Like there's a 20-minute jam every 16 shows, 20 shows, something like that. There was, I think 2010 is the only year of Phish post 92 where there's not a single 20 plus minute jam outside of Yem. Like they just weren't doing that. And now we're at a point where I remember in the fall tour, they came out, they opened up with a 25-minute Down with Disease one night. And then 4 nights later, a 20-minute Pebbles and Marbles. Like Fluffhead was jamming, Carini was jamming in the encore, and that's spilling over to this year. You're totally right, RJ. If like in 2011 Phish, they come out and they play a 27-minute long song to open the second set, not a single person on the internet, at home, webcasting, in the venue cares what song is played after that. It's an interesting perspective shift that we're at now.
Yeah, it's an embarrassment of riches, right?
So much so that they play a 10-minute Piper, and that might be my favorite jam of the show. There were so many ideas packed in there, and it was kind of the jam. It's when you get to the point where there's been so many good jams played in a show that you almost get jams upon jams upon jams. And it's just like whatever they played before references now more complete ideas. Like Trey was just coming up with fully formed riffs the first time he played it. And then he was distorting it with his effects. And I felt like that Piper, we see a lot of really good Pipers that the ideas get packed into 10 or 11 minutes. That for me, I was like, just play this for another 25 minutes, but I was super great with it. Patrick, what were your thoughts on the Piper?
I love the Piper. So I enjoyed the whole second set. I was very, very locked in. But it was, after the big jam, I was sort of like a little lost, I guess. Like, okay, is it done? After Piper, I think. Then there was I Always Wanted This. I Always Wanted This Way came after Piper, right? Which is great. And then, the encore break was a little long. It seemed like.
Yeah.
You perceive that too. So maybe they must figure out how much time they had or something like that. But I was sort of like, what's going on? What's, is there something happening here? The Jaboo it ended with a really great held note, which really struck me.
Yeah.
And I was actually, because, we did DM'd a little bit earlier. And I was like, I have to find where that held note was in the show and listen to some other ones. And then finally I was driving home and I was like, oh, the Jaboo, of course that's where it was. But I thought that was a great moment. The last minute and a half or 2 minutes of Jaboo was just a big held note and peak. Yeah, and the encore was, they figured out that they had enough extra time left, So Wilson was so much fun. I think RJ and I both sort of thought it might open the run, but it was a fitting close to the run. And then Bowie, right? Like the light show. I mean, I feel like the lights have taken a huge step up, as I'm sure everybody else does. But, Bowie, I think, Kuroda has all that just like programmed, right? I think, because it's like a song with a lot of cues and all that. So I thought that was a good, they must have really wanted to play that. My guess is that's what was why they would, to figure out how much time they had. To sort of, show off that light show there. So yeah, I thought, after the No Man's in the first set, I had no complaints. I would have left the venue very, very happy. But I thought the Piper was fantastic. Jaboo was fun, and the encore was great as well. Good way to cap it off.
It was. I want to give a quick shout out to the like psychedelic jam that ended. I Always Wanted It This Way. It wasn't a very long version, but there was like a nice little quiet psychedelic space that faded into Lonely Trip. That's become like, that's the ballad spot song. Like that is, if they're gonna play a ballad in like a high profile show, it's gonna be Lonely Trip right now, and I'm 1,000% here for it. I don't think that I've heard any song that better summarizes the experience of the pandemic, and like being isolated from family and friends and coming back and like reuniting with people better than Lonely Trip. It really, really hits me in the guts every time I hear that song.
It really got me. I cried like a little baby for like at least half the song.
It's such a beautiful song. It's so beautiful.
Yeah, it's something else. Walls of the Cave, some great versions at MSG in the past. Obviously, the debut was on 12/31/02. There was a great version when they were starting to bring it back into the rotation on the New Year's Day show in 2011. This I felt like was right there. The point you were making, Josh, about like the jam at the end of it. It's something I want to go back to. There was a ton of intensity, and then you get Wilson. Kind of feels like a throwback to 12/30/94, the first song played at MSG. Every time you hear it there, you're just like that. The ringing in my ears from the first time I heard a live one, just like I get chills every time in that venue. But Bowie, this was the first Bowie Encore since 8/9/04, which I thought was really cool. I think it's only the fourth time it's ever been in the Encore slot. And they just keep, it's not a jammed out David Bowie, but they keep figuring out these little ways to like experiment within the song. In it feels like that song is getting ready to be something of a jam vehicle again. I don't know. I loved hearing it there. And then More, guess it's never really over, even when it's over. One of my favorite recent Trey lines. RJ, I know that you are a huge fan of the song More.
I thought about you, RJ.
On that? Yeah, I did too. My wife even was like, "This is RJ's song."
But a couple people texted me too. I appreciate that. I'm really, really, it's a song. I don't know if I should be so public about how much I love it, but it's out now. So I was really thinking that it might come on not Friday, whatever the second night was at the end of that second set or in the encore. But I'm glad they played it, and it's great. It's like a great summation of, especially like just where Trey is. That's like every time I hear it, I just feel like it really it just captures the essence of kind of where we are with this band in a lot of ways. Which I think some people you can see the positive and negative in that, but I think it's just at the end of a run like this, perfect.
Yeah, I mean, to stand there and like vibrate with love and light with all these people, it's awesome. Maybe cheesy, but we need that. I listened to this song so much during the pandemic and definitely had some really like intense moments with it, just getting me through. And maybe that is cheesy, but I loved hearing it last night. That was the perfect like capstone to this like super 1.0 start of the encore, and just to bring it home with this song that's, really, it means a lot to Trey, I think.
It was, I mean, and everyone in my set, I mean, everyone that you could see was just, I mean, there were a lot of people crying. I mean, it was an emotional night, it was the last night, and we had been wanting to get there for a really long time. And I mean, they open up with Wilson for the encore. I didn't think they were going to add anything. I was like, all right, cool. That's great. Go home, and then a Bowie, and then More. But I think, RJ, you touched on something like Trey's, where he is in his head, like the positivity and just like, and I hate saying this phrase because it is cheesy, the love and light, like all that stuff, but it's so necessary and it's so great. And like a cynical guy like me, it's hard for me, to like wrap my head around it at times, but I don't crap on it because it's necessary and it's so important, and like, I don't know if you guys have seen like some of this, the music related stuff that Trey just randomly put out on Instagram a couple months back. I mean, like the guy's he's just beautiful. I mean, I don't, and he's just doing it because he loves music and he loves us and he just loves life, and thinking about where this story could have gone versus where it is today. Thank fucking God. That's awesome.
It's love and light, right? Like if Trey didn't have love and light right now, like we wouldn't be coming off these awesome shows. Exactly. So yeah, you can crap on it, but it's real.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and we talked about this the other day after the first show. Yes, there's a very direct and some would say cheesy element to some of like these phrasings, but like where Trey, from my perception, where he like had to be to get through some of these challenges, you have to have very direct, like like hymns that you like say to yourself over
Mhm.
and over and over again to convince yourself that you're on the right path, that you're doing the right thing, that these distractions are not going to be there. And that has to be like a very clear statement. Love and Light. You know, you take it from pretty much any song, you know, like Light, for example, is a perfect lyrical summation of where he was at in like 2007, 2008, and 2009. And when you read those lyrics just out loud, they can sound slightly ridiculous, but when you think about the meaning behind them, there's so much power in words, and there's no fat in those lyrics. And a lot of these great songs from the 3.0 and 4.0 era, there's no fat in the lyrics. It's just like, this is how I feel, and I'm going to say it. And if you believe it, it removes the cheesiness of it. So like, I'm right there with you as someone who I couldn't stand more for years. I'll fully admit I couldn't stand it. And I was listening to it last year, and the line, I guess it's never really over, even when it's over, hit me in a totally new way. And it made me think, I have no idea if this is what they were thinking about, you know, as the song was being written, but like this idea of, you know, Trey, and I was just thinking about Trey when I was thinking about this, but like the idea of him battling sobriety and overcoming an addiction, and all this good stuff comes to you. You know, Fish gets back together. He gets opportunities to play at Carnegie Hall. He gets opportunities on Broadway. But that idea of like, that journey is never over, and you can trip up at any point in time, and really bad things could have happened. Like telling himself over and over again that like this battle I'm going through is never really over is kind of my perspective on it. And it hit me in a totally different way of how powerful that song is. And the next time I saw it live, like I lost it, because you know, it just was one of those moments of realizing how lucky we are to have this again.
Agreed.
That's amazing. I think you closed it out, Brian. I think that's all.
I was going to say there's got to be something more than this, but there's not. What there is more of is we will be back for summer tour with excellent on the ground reporting and fans, people like Patrick, people like Josh, people like Seth, people like the Wook Plus guys, people like Ryan Storm. We had so many great guests, Lucy Montgomery. We had so many great guests throughout these last four nights, 4 afternoons of hanging out, talking about Fish. Patrick and Josh, thank you guys so much. Before we go, what was your jam of the night last night? What would you recommend as your jam to listeners to check out from the show? Patrick, I'll start with you.
For sure.
Say that one more time.
Simple. Yeah.
Simple. That's it. Josh, how about you?
It's a short portion of the Fluffhead, like right around the 2 minutes and 30 seconds before the song's actually over. I mean, the whole Fluffhead is awesome, so listen to it, obviously. But like, there's something Trey's doing there that just I can't stop thinking about. So that's what I'll say that.
It was good stuff. That was really good stuff. Megan, how about you?
I'm gonna say the No Man.
No Man. RJ?
I think it's simple. It's just too much still. I need to go back a bunch of times to try to figure it out. It is too much. Middle of the first set, what are you doing playing an incredible 20-minute jam like that? Stop it. You know, just too much. I'm going to go Piper, and I'm going to shout out really quickly. My son's middle name is Piper, and he was hanging with me watching the show last night, and I was taking notes on my computer, just, you know, like a professional, you know, to really every Patrick said 4.3 flubs, and he was right, because I had taken on my son was like, can I write some notes down? I was like, yeah, sure, why not? And I looked down at the end of Fluffhead, he had written, look how happy everyone is. And I feel like that just summarizes everything we've talked about here. That's amazing.
That's so awesome. That's amazing. So. He was feeling the vibes. He was feeling love and light. Wallace was feeling.
He had love and light just like coursing through him. It was incredible stuff. Well, Patrick and Josh, thank you guys so much for hanging with us. This was total pleasure. Please, you guys are welcome back. We would love to have you at any point to break down summer shows. So let us know what shows you're heading to, and we will get you on the books to keep doing this.
Awesome. Love to do it.
Awesome, guys.
It's always a pleasure. Nice to virtually meet you, Josh.
Same to you, Patrick.
You guys have a great.
Thanks.
Thank you. Have a great rest of your Sunday.
Thank
We'll
you,
talk
guys.
here soon. All right. And with that, we're closing out our weekend run of recapping fish shows. We will be back tomorrow, though.
Yep.
Where we're going to do a 10,000-foot view of the MSG run. What did it mean? Was it actually good? And will we go back to see fish this summer? These are the lingering questions that we are going to be trying to answer tomorrow.
Brian, I also tomorrow I want to talk a little bit about the art show that we went to and collaborating with Wook Plus and some other stuff that we got to do this past week. But I will, because we're so far over, I'm going to do that tomorrow.
Yeah, we do that. We can do that tomorrow. And we will also be asking, will we go to art shows in the future? Should we go to art shows in the future? You know, is there value in commerce in art? All these big questions are going to be answered tomorrow. We're not going to answer those here today. We're just gushing today. We also have an episode this week that I would encourage anyone hanging out and listening to this to check out. We will be breaking down Fish's 429.87 show from Nectars, a show that is about to turn 35 years old and is an incredible 3-set picture of where the band was in the spring of 1987. So check out our MSG 2022 recap tomorrow, as well as 429.87. With that, we have 2 small bits of business before we go. Megan, would you tell the wonderful people out there about Sunset Lake CBD once again?
Sunset Lake CBD is a majority employee-owned hemp farm. They're located just outside of Burlington, Vermont. For years, they were a dairy farm and they produced milk for Ben & Jerry's ice cream. But in 2019, they diversified and they started growing hemp for CBD. And they're amazing because they do so many things to kind of keep Vermont's tradition for land stewardship alive. They use sustainable regenerative farming techniques. They build and protect healthy soils. They're 100% pesticide free. They use minimal tillage and implement cover crops and crop rotations. They're also a research farm for the University of Vermont. So they have their agronomists come out and study hemp and inform best industry practices. If you haven't checked them out yet, you really should. They have everything. They've got tinctures, salve, gummies, flour, pre-rolls. They've got it all. So check them out today at sunsetlakecbd.com. And you can use our coupon code, which is HFPod, and you get 20% off all products.
We love Sunset Lake around here, and we encourage everyone check them out. We've gotten some great feedback from listeners who have utilized the coupon code to get some Sunset Lake. And we would want you, dear listener, to be the next person to benefit from Sunset Lake CBD. We also want to tell you about, we are sponsored by CashOrTrade.org, the only secondary ticketing marketplace where fans buy, sell, and trade tickets at face value. Fans are able to DM each other both before, during, and after a transaction. You can rate and review each other when a transaction is completed. There's no added fees to sell your tickets, and all sales are fully protected by Cash or Trade's trader protection policy, which guarantees your money back. Users can avoid purchase fees with a gold membership subscription. Visit cashortrade.org to learn more and start utilizing them. And a great time, too, because we have fish shows in 5 weeks. More fish shows. There is something more than this. We've got 8 fish shows coming up over Memorial Day weekend, plus in the week to follow. And then we'll have another short break. I don't know if anyone knows these dates, so I'm just telling them, our listener base out there may not be aware that Fish is touring this summer. Fish will be back on the road in mid-July for a run from, I think, July 14th through like August 15th. And then there's another break before Dick's. So lots and lots and lots of Fish to cover in the coming months. Plus, as we said, we will be diving deep into the history of Fish. We're still going to be doing it. 429.87 today, or on Wednesday, and on Monday, tomorrow, as I speak, we will be covering MSG in full. With that, RJ, Megan, thank you guys so much for joining me on this Sunday.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Megan.
Brian. Thanks, RJ.
Great job, everybody. Megan, rest up for tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm
Big
ready.
day tomorrow.
Ready.
Big day tomorrow.
Back to reality.
Thank you to our incredible guests, and thank you to all of you who listen. Have a great one.
Thank you.